Hello, welcome to RevelatorAlf. In this video I'm going to tell you about easy lighting for videos on YouTube or any other platform. So, catch you inside. RevelatorAlf. Hello, welcome to RevelatorAlf. In this video I'm going to give you some easy tips to get good lighting for your videos on YouTube or on any other platform. So, one of the key things to remember with any kind of video equipment that you're going to use, whether it's a smartphone, you know, like an iPhone, something like that, whether it's an action cam, or whether it's a digital single lens reflex, a DSLR, it's all about how the image is processed, but also how much light comes through the lens. Now, in basic terms, the bigger the lens that you have, the more light that it's going to shine through. Hence why a big camera like a DSLR with a huge lens is always going to produce better quality images than a camera phone, let's say, or an action cam with a smaller lens. Now, the way you can change things a little bit is actually by using the best light available. So the best light available will always be natural light. So for example, I make a lot of motorcycle videos when I'm on the motorcycle, and I use an action cam, something like this, Drift HD. It's got quite a big lens for an action cam. Also the processor inside is quite good. Now the frames per second which I use are between 25 and 30. Usually I shoot on 25 frames per second. Now what this means is that the processor inside is actually firing off, it's capturing an image at 25 frames, 25 photos for every second. It's going on this. That's 25 frames per second. Okay, so it's allowing a certain amount of light to be captured. If I increase the light, then obviously the quality and the lighting on the image is going to get even better. If I decrease the light, then the image quality is going to be less. So let's say, for example, I wanted to shoot the difference between day and night. In the day, at shooting at 25 frames per second, or even on a smartphone or on a DSLR, whatever it is, I would get a better quality image because I'm shooting in natural light and all that light is coming into the lens. If I'm shooting at night, for example, there's a lot less light, therefore the image, the light is not going to get through the lens and the image sensor cannot pick up that light and cannot pick up any image. So it literally is blind. So the way you can manipulate the light is to either add more light or change the camera setting. So for example, if you've got a really bright day and you think, well, the light is going to be too bright for the camera, okay, what you can do, you can actually change the exposure setting. So you can actually reduce the amount of light being registered by the sensor, or you can actually increase the FPS, the frame per second, so let's say 60 or 120 or whatever, and essentially that FPS is just like the shutter speed on a camera, on a normal camera, a still camera, in that it will actually open and close a lot quicker. So instead of going at 25 or 30 frames per second, it goes now it will go at 60 and essentially it's opening and closing a shutter in conventional older cameras and still cameras at a quicker rate. At that quicker rate is actually reducing the amount of light, the amount of time the light can get through to the sensor. The net result is that you're actually reducing the amount of light, therefore it won't be as exposed. So how do you actually achieve the best lighting? Well, there are various ways. So first of all, if you're shooting inside, for example, if I'm doing a vlog piece like I am now, okay, and I want to talk about my motorcycles or tips and advice and stuff like that, well, really all I just need is an overall light source. So let's say here I'm in my office, and I've got a fluorescent light bulb above me, light tube above me. That's flooding the whole room with light. But I also may get a little bit of shadow behind me. If I've got a window, for example, that's letting in natural light, that will actually better. So you've got overhead light, you've got side light as well. If you don't have an overhead light, try and get as close to the window as possible, therefore you'll have the natural light. Therefore, as more light you can actually bring into the image, the less your camera has to work, the less your camera has to try and manipulate everything just to get the best light possible. Then you can still shoot at 25 frames per second, something like that. Now, this is a side note about frames per second, but the more you increase the frames per second, the less the quality of the image is going to be in terms of lighting. Okay, so you have to add more light to increase the quality for a given frame per second. Now, if it's a really bright day, you're not going to notice it. It won't be noticeable. The only reason that, let's say, I would increase the frame rate on my videos, let's say for action cam videos or, you know, movement, motorcycle movement, is really if I really wanted to slow down the image. Let's say there's a particular thing that I'm riding and I'm going to jump up over over an obstacle. I'm going to jump up and I'm in the air and I want to do a Superman wave or something like that. Then I can just go wave, really slow motion. But because I'm shooting in a higher frame rate and it's a really bright day, I can reduce it down, but the quality will still be great. Okay, but that's the only reason. If you're not going to do anything like that, keep it really simple. Auto settings on your camera, on your smartphone, just set up for 1080 HD, even 720 HD is fine for YouTube use. Most people are going to be watching it on their YouTube videos on a smartphone, by the way, so you know, you've got to bear that in mind. Shoot in HD, shoot at 25 or 30 frames per second, that's all you need. Now, if you've got a still shot like this, for example, then that's fine. If you've got a lot of action going on, then obviously, you know, your hand, your movement, the motorcycle movement, the car movement, whatever it is going to be quite blurry. So you may have to shoot with a higher frame rate just to compensate for that. But the thing to remember is natural light. Always try and use natural light. So let's say, for example, I'm shooting my motorcycle videos and I've got my camera on my helmet or placed strategically on the bike. I'm going to try and go out in the best light possible because that's going to make the image on the camera better. So on a bright sunny day, I'll try and go out in. I can go out on a dull day and I can manipulate the video in editing to give me a bit more of a mood, create different effects, but essentially in terms of quality of image, on a bright sunny day, clear blue skies, that's when I'm going to get the best image. Okay, the other thing is actually light source. What you don't want to do is actually have the light source going directly into the camera. So in other words, let's say if you're shooting towards the sun, okay, the camera's well, you're just going to flare everything out. What you need to do, you need to have the subject actually having the sun on the subject's face, so the camera is now pointing towards the subject. Very similar to actually shooting next to a window, got the daylight shining through, and you actually have the daylight on the subject as opposed to coming into the camera. So if I was to do this, for example, then I'd have more chance of having shadow on my face on this side as I'm shooting with the camera. So these are kind of tips. Know where the light source is and actually have the light source on the subject matter, not necessarily coming into the camera directly. Also, the backlighting. So for example, if you've got a window, which I have here like so, and I open up that, then having a backlight which actually bring in lots of light can actually interfere with your image. So you may want to cut out the backlight. You can have a little bit of light behind you just to reduce the shadow effect, but that's about it. So here I'm going to now discuss some of the other options. Okay, so here we have just an overhead light, a fluorescent light here as well. It's dark outside, but you're flooding the whole room with light, but you're going to get shadows behind potentially. But let's do it another way. Okay, so here I've introduced a light source directly behind the camera to flood my face with light. So basically it's just a lamp. So I'll put that there. So it's just a lamp and it's flooding my face, but again you are going to get shadows behind, so you may need to consider backlighting. If you're very close to a wall, then you're really going to see the shadows. If you're actually further away from the wall, you won't see the shadows so much. Okay, so here is another shot where you're using a lamp to flood the face, your body if you like, with light, but you're actually in a dark room. So now you're really introducing artificial light just to light up the subject or whatever it is. Whether shooting in a closed space, in the dark, under artificial light or anything. Now you can manipulate everything with lamps, with overhead lights, but the best thing to do for, especially if you're just starting out, and essentially what this video is all about is just starting out. Okay, using a smartphone, an action cam or a DSLR, use natural light as much as possible. Then you can start investing in, bigger lights if you want, or studio lights, make a home studio, whatever you want. But essentially, having natural light is always going to be better, for making really good videos for YouTube. But you've got to be careful where that light source is coming and how much light you're putting onto your face. Okay, so as you can see, there are lots of different ways to light a subject. There are lots of different ways to get that light into the camera, but essentially the bigger the lens, the more light and the better quality light is going to be allowed to come through. The more expensive the camera, the better the processor inside, the better it's going to process that light coming through, the image that's coming through. But essentially you've got to have that light coming through, and you've got to be able to position yourself to make the best use of that light. Okay, so I hope you found this useful. I say it's just a quick video really, just to give you some pointers about trying to use natural light whenever you can, and then build on from there to start introducing artificial light. Whether you've got an action cam like a GoPro or Drift or Sony or whatever it is, whether you just got a smartphone, an iPhone, a Samsung Galaxy, so on and so forth. Okay, smartphones are really great processors. They're getting better all the time, but they've got a very small lens, so they work great in really bright, nice days, brightly lit conditions. But when it comes to dark, shooting in the evening, at night, they're not so great. Very similar to action cams. Action cams, great during the day, bigger lens, better processors, better for being mobile and shooting moving pictures. Essentially what I do, for my motorcycle videos. But again, still quite limited, especially in the dark and low light conditions. Then you have a DSLR, which is bigger, more cumbersome, but the quality of image is going to be better, and mostly because of the lens that you're using is going to be bigger, allowing more light in. But the top tip, always try and use natural light. Try and shoot on a bright day. Know where the sunlight is coming from. Position yourself to the sun as much as possible, or to the light source as much as possible, but not too much that it's flaring you out or that's making you squint and you can't see what you're doing. Okay, right, I hope this helps. Please subscribe and hit the notifications button as well. If you like this video, please like it, and listen, leave comments below as well and let me know what you think. Right, catch you on the next video. Cheers.